Doors. 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 Another door. Doors. 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 So many doors! Well, we are in Sigil. Let's talk about it. Where do they lead? Where do they go? What the hell am I doing here? Why does the city seem like it's folding in upon itself on the top of a peak? I don't know. But here's a few things I do know. I'm Justin. I got Brady and Ben with me in these different directions, and we're Intoxicated Intellect. Thanks for joining us. We're talking about Sigil today, City of Doors. If you like our stuff, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Tell us if you've had a campaign in Sigil. Tell us if you played some Planescape. Tell us about some of the stuff we're talking about. Just interact with us, and please subscribe. We'd love to have you guys around. We're going to be doing something a little special if we get to 250 subscribers here soon. We got something in the wings waiting for you. Brady,
Yes.
You've done a lot of research into this.
So I had an entire script on Sigil written, and then completely scrapped it and rewrote this a day and a half before we were supposed to record originally. It's known by many names: the City of Doors, the City of Portals, the Cage, just to name a few. It's the self-proclaimed center of the multiverse, which makes sense when you understand it manages to be located floating atop a spire in the middle of the Outlands, a plane in the center of the Great Wheel cosmology that's known to be infinite. To add mystery to the Cage, while magic doesn't work anywhere in the Outlands, it works perfectly in Sigil, except for spells that involve interplanar travel, such as plane shift. The city seems to be ever-changing in size, as every time great sages attempt to measure the diameter, they get a different result. And yes, I did say diameter. You see, Sigil is actually shaped like a giant donut, and has all of its buildings and wards on the outer side, and is recursive in only one direction. While
It's like this, but everything's in here.
So it's like the Halo ring.
Yeah.
And
Be
while
a little
people
more up to date.
may only ever be on the inner portion, if they look up, there's no sky. It's not there. You can't see it on the outs, which would make you look up and you can see the other side of the city, but there's nothing to look out on. And those who've managed to climb to the tops of the highest rooftops in the city to try to change their vantage point reported there was nothing beyond the city. No outlands, no space, just empty nothingness.
A place out of time.
So yeah, it's literally a place out of your secondary hit my point.
A place
so
out
it's
of
in the
time
middle
and
of the
space.
Outlands, but not in the Outlands. But it is.
But it's not.
You could see it from the Outlands, but once you get there, you're no longer in the Outlands.
I guess it's its own like pocket dimension.
It seems in its own way to be just that. Keep going, Brady. What else you got?
The Nexus of Planes does have a 24-hour day-night cycle with only 6 hours of full daylight, meaning even races sensitive to sunlight are comfortable most of the time. The city itself is cramped with buildings seemingly fighting for space and extremely tiny living quarters. The climate in the city shifts often as well. It's either smog-filled that has reduced eyesight to 10 feet due to the factories, rainy and slimy because when it rains, all the smog then condenses and it's gross.
Yep.
And then you have sunny and breezy when the rains stop. The only way in or out of Sigil...
Sounds like London in the 1800s, as a quick aside.
Pretty much. The only way in or out of Sigil is through one of the many doors that act as portals to different planes. Even if you were to stand atop the spire in the Outlands with Sigil floating literally around you, it would be impossible to teleport inside. Just cannot be done. While the city is connected to every single plane at all times, it is tied to none of them.
It's the most neutral of neutrals.
Yes.
It is.
What makes a man go neutral?
All I know is my gut says maybe.
Maybe.
There are 6 wards within the city, and they are the Ladies' Ward, which is the richest and most private ward home to heads of government and the extremely wealthy. The Ladies' Ward named after the Lady of Pain. Then you have the Market Ward. As the name suggests, this is where items from across the plains can be found for purchase, such as food, jewelry, clothing, weapons, etc.
Just imagining
exotic
like one
item.
open air like bazaar market. Like you're walking through there and everyone's shouting at everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like the biggest damn one I've ever seen. Like you
Yeah.
see like a small city center market, and it's just like sheets and stands. It's like an Agrabah, right? It's
Yep.
like Aladdin's running through it doing his little musical number, but he keeps running through just the market and it never ends.
It never ends.
It's
Never.
like,
if you thought the market couldn't get any bigger, you're wrong, because the Guildhall ward is normally counted as just part of the market ward, but it's like the part of it where the traders and the artisans and the guildmasters set up shop. So on one side you got all your farmer stands and all that kind of stuff, and now you got the guild halls and
but wait,
crafting
there's
stores.
more.
Always.
Order now, and we'll throw in this well-crafted item.
Then you have the clerk's ward, and it's where the lower level bureaucrats live and hang out. Then you got the hive ward, or the slums as it's also called. It's home to the poverty-stricken, the rogues, and the dregs of society. Finally, there's the lower ward, and it's the industrial district with the forges and the other shops that make all the smog and the smoke coming out that like fills your vision and stuff at all times.
Oh, it's your industrial zone and your building sim.
Sigil was originally created for the Planescape campaign setting. Click on the link in the screen to watch a video on it. Somewhere on here. It's been a staple.
Maybe down here. It's up there probably.
The city has been a staple in every edition of D&D since. It was created as a home-based style location where players could resupply, rest, revisit NPCs that they enjoyed interacting with. I mean, if you're going to walk through a bunch of doors to other planes, it's nice to have a place to call home. In universe, the origins of Sigil are clouded in mystery and legend. Most people believe it was built by the Lady of Pain herself, while others believe it was built by the Dabbas, the Lady of Pain's servants, and the ones who oversee the day-to-day operations of the city. Long before 5th edition rolled around, though, Sigil was ruled differently. There was once, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, D&D 2, where the city was ruled by many guilds who fought each other constantly. This pissed off the Lady of Pain, and she forced the number down to 15. Those 15 factions ruled the city for centuries.
It's like a city overrun by the mob.
Yes.
Or various factions of the mob, I should say.
Yes.
It was chaos, everyone fighting over every city block, and the Planescape campaign setting starts when these 15 factions are found. The campaign setting and the modules that go with it go along with the factions in this sort of different level of faction. The factions they're the Aethar who believed gods were frauds, and they're agnostics. They didn't see a need to worship them because they felt the gods were undeserving of it. Maybe even atheists. The Aethar follow a rule of 3, which Planescape kind of follows a rule of 3. There's other places to read about that. And having those 3 follow main goals, and to prove publicly the falsity of the so-called gods, to lessen or destroy the influence of the gods, and to part the veil of the unknowable to glimpse the truth of divinity. The next faction were the believers of the Source. They believed that life was a stepping stone, or a forge for becoming a divinity. Their main goal is to become closer to the divine, and they believe that divinity is the next step of the soul. It's like an upgrade in reincarnation, so to speak. Due to this, they put a huge emphasis on creation. Because creating is a great way to assert a divinity. Every member does time at the Great Foundry in the lower ward. They aren't cruel per se, but if you have to learn things the hard way, they're definitely not going to step in and prevent you from that.
So if I understand it, then the Aethar and then the believers of the Source were basically antithesis to one another. The Aethar were gods aren't real, they're whatever. Like no.
Yeah, the Aethar like there are no
can
gods.
Become
no one
gods,
has.
But you have to struggle your way to be a god.
Right. They think there's a path to it, no matter how difficult it could be, and whereas the former are like, no one has domain over us.
Next faction we have up is the Doom Guard. The opening to the wiki article for them reads, "Entropy is ecstasy, decay is divine. The verse is supposed to fall apart. We're just here to keep leatherheads from interfering." End quote. They want to watch.
Sounds like Mad Max.
Pretty much. I mean, they just want to watch the world burn and to be the ones causing it. Since they enjoy destruction as much as they do, it makes sense that they hole up in the armory within the ladies' ward. They just like to watch things be destroyed, and they want to be the one swinging the hammer or the spell that causes that destruction. Next up is the Dustmen. This faction sheds all emotion, purges all passions. They seek to ascend to a pure, true death. They achieve this by over time having their alignments shift towards true neutral, and only once this has been accomplished can a true death be possible. There are sects of the Dustmen who keep their old alignments and seek different ways to find a true death, but it's not as common. Now, the people of Sigil often give nicknames to the Dustmen, such as the Dead, Dusters, or outside of earshot, Dusties. Now, one time this chick started calling them the Dust Bunnies, or she did until she woke up to a zombie wearing rabbit ears next to her. Good to see some of these guys have a sense of humor, and I wish I was I wish I was making that up, but that is written into their article.
I really appreciate the nihilism in that one. Like, and I appreciate the understanding that everything moves from order to chaos from the Doom Guard. Like, you can see those philosophical ideas, like the only true force in the universe is entropy, that everything moves from a state of order to chaos over time.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a better way to sum them up. The Dustmen sound, I mean, the zombie is probably the best way to put them. They sound like it's just, I'm here. If I go,
they won't pass up a good
whatever.
joke.
On to the next faction, we're talking about the Fated. So the Fated believe that the multiverse belongs to those who seize it. If you're down on your luck, well, tough shit, it's on you. A lot of newcomers to Sigil who were once powerful, influential, and affluent people in their prime material are drawn to the Fated. They're seasoned cutthroats who want to carve their own destiny in the vastness of the plains. Have their headquarters located in the Hall of Records within the Clerk's Ward. They want to know everything.
Yeah, those are the ones that are like power is the ultimate rule.
Yep. And it does kind of make sense. They may, in that kind of being that Clerk's Ward, studying up on, your Julius Caesar. If this were, our history, studying up on your Julius Caesar.
Very Machiavellian.
Kind of
the end does
very
justify
Machiavellian. There it is. Next up, kind of with that grouping, is the Fraternity of Order. So when I say with that grouping, we've kind of been going kind of antithesis to one another a little bit. They believe in rules and laws. A common saying among the governors, as they're known in the governors. As they're known in Sigil. Hello, Governor. Learn the laws of the multiverse, and you can rule it. This faction attracts both the scholarly and the ambitious. Most are both because, let's not forget, knowledge is power in its own right. To be fully accepted into the ranks, a potential member must pass an extensive test of laws to prove that they know and understand them. Kind of sounds like a lawyer, right?
It sounds like a lot of work. Yeah.
Sounds like far too much work.
Sounds like a lot of work just to do a lot more work.
I know it's hard to constantly name groups and such, but I think Zeb Cook could have put a little more effort into the next one. Could have done better than the Free League. Regardless of their ununique name, they are a faction. A loose one, but a faction nonetheless. Members of the Free League wear their symbol openly in order to promote the ideas of their faction, such as acceptance, balance, and individuality, as well as to show others that a potential ally is nearby. This is done mainly since they aren't a close-knit group, but do keep an eye out for one another. So they may not know every member of their faction, but like if they see someone wearing that symbol, they're gonna go help them, or they're gonna go out of their way to help somebody else. That's what they do.
Yeah, they're the true individualist libertarians.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you're not hurting anybody else,
do whatever the fuck you want.
Do whatever you want to do.
Next,
I like that one.
We have the Harmonium. The opening to their wiki article reads, quote, "Peace is our goal, but if it takes a little war to get others to set things right, the Harmonium way, so be it. That's how we'll reach our goal in harmony." End quote.
Yeah.
Peace, sometimes through force.
I love peace so much, I don't care how many people I have to kill to get there.
Yep. Honestly. So, as you can probably guess from that, they care a lot more about order and harmony than they do how they achieve it. They don't care if there's a bit of chaos sewn in. Members of this massively large faction all tend to be towards lawful alignments, but evil members are just as common as good members because harmony doesn't only mean good, it means peace and order. And that can be many different things depending on what your ideals are.
That's the faction of martial law all the time.
Always, yeah.
All the time. That's full-on martial law. Like, we're in charge and we're going to ensure peace by force. Yeah, I don't care who I have to kill.
They are a
Peace through
super
escalation.
They are a super accepting group, as the Harmonium is open to all who fully believe in their universal peace.
Believe or die.
For you folks at home, if it's not obvious yet, we're going in alphabetical order. So that means the next faction's the Mercy Killers.
What a name.
They are the executioners of justice. After the Harmonium makes an arrest, and the Fraternity of Order is held a trial for the accused and found them guilty, the Mercy Killers then get involved. To them, justice is everything, and believe a properly applied punishment can lead to perfection, whether that's executing a murder or maiming someone who crippled another. True eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth mentality. Leaves us all blind and toothless, but hey, everyone learned a lesson, right? So we've got something.
The lesson
makes
is
perfect-
fear, by the way.
Yeah, the lesson is fear those with swords and doing anything that may transgress them. It makes perfect sense then that their HQ within Sigil is the fucking prison.
Yep.
It almost total harmonium to the... Yeah, it almost total contrast to the Harmonium and the Mercy Killers is the Revolutionary League. Well, their wiki article intro reads, "The status quo is built on lies and greed. Crush the factions, break them all down and rebuild what's left. That's the only way to find the real truth." This faction works in small cells, communicate between cells through representatives. That way, when shit hits the fan and someone gets captured, they can't spill all beans. Once a member of a cell has been captured, the remaining members of that cell just disappear by changing their names, occupations, identities, locations to a different plane. They scatter to the wind. And by scattering to the wind, the Revolutionary League help their own cause. And other factions attempt to wipe out a cell or two, and it draws in more who believe the Revolutionary League must be doing something right. Like,
they basically create martyrs.
Hey, any publicity is good publicity, right?
This is true.
At least you're getting your ideas out there, and if they're talking about your ideology like you are with the Revolutionary League, you've already won half the war, because people believe in your ideology enough, they'll fight to the death to defend it.
The next faction is an interesting one. Basically, it's the Sign of One, or the Signers as they're more commonly called in layman's terms. Members of the Sign of One believe that the multiverse and everything in it exists because the mind believes it to be so. I think, therefore I am. Thought has the power of creation. While some appear to be nothing more than daydreamers, others have an extraordinary ability for observation. Regardless of which end of the spectrum a Signer may find themselves on, they are all highly open-minded, if extremely self-centered individuals. One does not believe their thoughts and will shape the multiverse and not become a bit of a narcissist.
Just a little one.
But because of that, they have a hard time understanding or, caring about the emotions of others.
It's the secret in modern philosophy, like creating your own reality by imposing your will. If you believe it enough, it'll happen.
A hard time understanding and caring about the emotions of others. Well, kind of in the opposite of that, we have the Society of Sensation, or the Sensates.
My dudes.
They believe that the multiverse is meant to be experienced to the fullest. That senses and experiences lead to truth, and nothing exists beyond what can be sensed. Due to this, many of them are major hedonists. Wonder why.
It's easy to fall down this slippery slope, folks.
Right? A true sensate moves past this in a way that they realize there's more to life than simple physical gratification. They respect their comrades' wishes and won't force issues that make their friends uncomfortable. This leads them to experience new things that may cause pain to themselves. Not because they enjoy pain, some of them might, I don't know, but not because they necessarily enjoy pain, but because it could save a weaker being from going through the same thing that they went through, that weaker being may not be able to handle. Basically, do as I say, not as I do, learn from my experience type of deal.
We got 2 more to go. Thanks for sticking with us. I know it's a long one. It's a lot to go through these factions, but we all think they're really fun.
Important.
And it's worth at least putting it out there for the people that want to see it. I hope you do. If you want to see more, go down below. The Transcendent Order believes that action without thought is the purest form of response, and by training your mind and body to do so, your spirit will harmonize and become one with the multiverse. intuition. It's the way. This is what I would like to be rather than what I am and fully endorse. And they appear self-centered, and a lot of them are. You know, it's not because they're selfish. It's because they'd rather focus on achieving their own unity of mind, body, and soul before worrying about the struggles of others. Hey man, I got enough to deal with. I can't help you until I help myself. How the members of the faction go about this, though, differs for each individual. Everyone walks their own path, and it's the Tao. Some see the body as a temple and treat it as such. Others see the body as a tool to train and sharpen in order to achieve unity. I myself see my body as a curse and would like to train my mind to transcend it if I can. And lastly, we have the Zausiteks, who preach that chaos is truth, order is delusion. Embracing the randomness of the multiverse, one learns its secrets. These are the absurdists amongst us. The existentialists, go read some Camus. As one would imagine, this faction doesn't get along well with the Harmonium due to their straight up alignment, ideological differences.
Straight antithesis.
Yeah.
I can see a few, like, these guys might work with the entropy folk every now and again. Just from the same negative energy plane forces. It's really hard to identify a Zausitek as someone just doesn't, like, chaos doesn't align with
membership and alliance.
Yeah, a membership and alliance, or really an identification in any way.
Just because you're going to be a chaotic person and do chaotic things doesn't mean you're a Zausitek.
Right. Some people will come right out and they'll admit they're one and they'll even fake membership. That must be a good reputation. But be careful if you're going to fake your membership with them. This faction doesn't like imposters, even though I would consider that chaotic. And more than one person has found themselves in the care of the Dustman. We're impersonating a Zao.
That is a hell of a punishment.
Yeah.
You go live with the living zombies, bitch.
I know it's right in there. I know it's just right in there, but these guys are all over the place.
Man. That's, as we've said, a lot of factions to cover.
Yeah.
It's a lot. A lot to keep straight. What was it, 15 of them?
Yeah, 15 of them.
There's 15.
50? Yeah. It is important. It is important to understand how these factions would have interacted over the course of however many years they ruled Sigil, because it led to the faction war. Funny enough, who would have guessed?
The conclusion of the
Complete mind
Planescape
blown.
Fennec.
Right? Yeah. Who would have guessed? At some point during this era, there was a plot to free Malar. Malar, the Beast Lord, being the one who I'm speaking of, from his imprisonment. During this plot, an artifact known as the Dream Link started to spread a corrupted version of the nature from the Beastlands into several planes and even into Sigil itself due to its connections. Part of this corruption was an increased aggravation in those it came across, and this led to strenuous political tensions between the factions for control over the city as a whole.
If there's just like violent attacks breaking out because there's some dark primal section of the Beastlands seeping into that plane, that's a real problem.
These tensions eventually turned into an all-out war. Battles, bloodshed, the whole nine. This time of open hostility between the factions, known as, really originally, the Faction War. The Faction War was ended eventually when the Lady of Pain went and forcibly disbanded all of the factions. Some of them completely being wiped out. Which, Brady, did you happen to see which ones were wiped out of curiosity?
It did not state specifically, at least the wiki articles that I was reading. The 5e version of Sigil, the Lady of Pain rules over the city from her throne of blades, and only concerns herself with threats to the city or when people break one of her edicts, which are keeping the peace and no worship of her.
There are no games for this throne, by the way.
No one knows for certain who or what the Lady of Pain is. It's debated if she's a god, a primordial, or some other kind of entity entirely. Like I said, you do not worship her. And if you are caught worshiping her, she has been known to skin people alive and hang their bodies out as warnings to others. She doesn't mess around when it comes to her edict.
She's in charge, but she is the most humble, most powerful being in the multiverse. I'll say that right now.
She lets almost all races into her city, with the exception of deities and archfiends. Those aren't allowed inside of Sigil.
Because fuck them, that's why.
Yeah.
That also might be the only people that could take her down.
Potentially.
Given power levels.
Too much influence, too much unrest in the city. She's dealt with that enough.
She leaves the day-to-day operations of the city to the Davis, a race of beings only found on Sigil, and as far as anyone knows, were formed when Sigil itself was. Some say that they formed it, some say they were formed when Sigil was. No one really knows the true origins of the Davis or Sigil itself. These creatures know the inner and outer workings of the city like the back of their hands, and on top of dealing with the day-to-day governance of the city, they are also responsible for the repairs and reconstruction. They are constantly tearing down buildings, building new ones in their place, like keeping the.
They are
underworkings-
100% full-on city workers, no contractors.
Right.
It's just
So, literally, like, I mean, and granted, this came out beforehand, so, but it's the Keepers from Mass Effect.
On top of those city workers that are the Davis, Sigil also has massively large constructs that go around patrolling and forcing people to honor the contracts they have agreed upon. Go check out our Biggest Baddies of the Multiverse video. Link somewhere up in here. That monster is insane. Now, if a party were to find themselves in Sigil today, they would see a crammed city of over 300,000. Only 50,000 of those being true residents of Sigil, as planar travelers are always popping through. Trade's at an all-time high. That also means petty crime is as well. You can
there's a lot going through. There's so much to steal.
You can freely travel to different wards, sightseeing or purchasing goods for the next part of your journey. Hell, if your DM lets you buy a townhome near the Market Ward or the Guildhall Ward, and always be within a short walk of where the places you want to visit regularly are. Most people are able to hire guides to help them traverse the city and interact with the locals, as people of Sigil use a lot of local slang in their speech that may be hard to understand for outsiders. But beware. A lot of these guides are fakes and are known to just rob you or set you up to be mugged, so be careful. Some of them are legit, some of them not so much. Good luck figuring out which is which.
Keep your hand on your purse belt.
Keep an idea in your mind that Sigil is the most neutral city. It means lawful, it means good, it means chaotic, that means evil. They can all coexist there. You never know which one you're going to find.
And whether your group finds yourself in the City of Portals for a brief stay or an extended period, we hope this helps you understand the history and environment that is the biggest mystery in the multiverse. Until next time, thank you all.
Thank you guys for sticking around. If you
See
made
you,
it this
everybody.
far, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.